So, you're ready to upgrade your home. It is such an exciting time, but let's be real. It comes with one massive, kind of stressful question. How on earth do you buy a new home and sell your old one at the same time? Well, don't worry. We're going to break down the two main paths you can take using some great insights from Finance Hub and Networks to help you find the right strategy for you. First up, we'll get right into the heart of the upgrader's dilemma. Then, we'll explore those two key paths, buying first versus selling first. After that, we'll cover some really smart ways to manage the risks involved, and finally, help you figure out your best path forward. Let's get right into it. You know, at its core, this whole challenge is just about timing. It's that classic chicken and egg problem, but for real estate. You need the cash from your current home to buy the next one, but you really don't want to sell until you've found that perfect next place. So what gives? And yeah, this is the very question that keeps people up at night. I mean, on one hand, you're terrified of selling your home and then having absolutely nowhere to go, maybe being forced into a rush decision or a cramped rental. But on the other hand, you've got this fear of buying first and then getting stuck paying two mortgages if your old place just won't sell. It feels like a real catch-22. All right, let's talk about our first option, buying first, then selling later. This is really the path for anyone who's found their absolute dream home and there's just no way they're going to let it get away. The goal here is all about security, locking in that new property before you've even thought about putting your old one on the market. So the key financial tool that makes all this possible is something called a bridging loan. Just think of it like a temporary financial bridge, right? It spans that gap between when you buy your new place and when you finally get the money from selling your old one. It's what lets you move forward with confidence. So, how do you qualify for one of these? Well, lenders are generally going to look for one of two things. Either you've got a good amount of equity built up in your current home and your income can easily handle the final mortgage after you sell, or your income is just really strong, strong enough to cover the entire new loan all on its own, if worst came to worst. The benefits here are super clear and honestly, very appealing. First, you get the security of knowing that new home is yours. No late night worrying about being outbid or watching someone else buy it. And second, you avoid that logistical nightmare of moving twice, once into a rental and then again into your new home. That's a huge stress reliever. But, and there's always a but, that security definitely comes with risks, and they are mostly financial. Bridging loans simply have higher interest costs. The biggest risk, though, is the market itself. What if your current home takes way longer to sell than you planned or sells for less than you hoped? That can really stretch out that expensive bridging period and create some serious repayment stress. Okay, now for path number 2, selling first, then buying later. This strategy is all about prioritizing financial clarity and control. It's really perfect for anyone who wants to just eliminate as much of that financial uncertainty as they possibly can. With this approach, you go to market with your current home first. Simple as that. Once you have a buyer and a signed contract in your hands, you know precisely how much money you are going to have to work with. This isn't just guesswork. It's a solid number you can use to budget for your next purchase with total confidence. Now, this slide here is really interesting because it's all about the timing. A huge misconception is that you have to wait for your entire settlement to go through before you can even start looking for a new place, but that's just not true. You only need to have that 10% deposit from your buyer before you have to pay the 10% deposit for your new home. Knowing this can really speed things up. The advantages to this path are basically the mirror image of the risks from the first path. You have total control and absolute clarity over your budget. You know your numbers cold. And because of that, you completely avoid that costly bridging finance, which just means way lower financial risk and lower interest payments overall. Of course, the risks here aren't financial. They're more logistical and, let's be honest, emotional. If the timing doesn't line up perfectly, yeah, you might have to move into a rental for a few months. And then there's that market miss risk, that nagging fear that your dream home is going to pop up for sale and get snapped up while you're still waiting for your own sale to go through. So let's just put it all together side by side. Here's the core trade-off. Buying first is really a quest for security. You get the house, but it comes with the market risk of a bad sale. Selling first is a quest for control. You get the money locked in, but it comes with the market miss risk of losing out on a house you love. So whichever path you're leaning towards, you're not powerless here. There are some really clever strategies you can use when you're negotiating to help manage these risks and just buy yourself some much-needed breathing room. Here are 2 awesome pro tips for your contracts.
First, when you sell, try to negotiate for an extended settlement, maybe 90 days instead of the standard 42. This gives you a much bigger window to find and lock down your next home. Second, think about adding a rent-back clause. This lets you sell your home, get the money in the bank, and then literally rent it back from the new owner for a month or two. It completely removes the pressure of having to move out right away.
So we've laid out the paths, the pros, the cons. The final decision, though, it really comes down to a very personal question. Which kind of stress are you better equipped to handle? And this is such a powerful thought to end on. Look, the stress of moving twice or living with your in-laws for a month is definitely real, but it's temporary. Mortgage stress, on the other hand, the kind that comes from being financially stretched, from worrying about a slow sale or paying crazy high interest costs, that is a much heavier and much more expensive burden that can last for a long, long time. The really good news in all of this is you don't have to try and figure it all out alone. This is exactly what experts are for. A broker from a team like Finance Hub and Networks can sit down with you, actually run the numbers for both the buy first and sell first scenarios, and help you see with total clarity which path makes the most sense for your unique situation. So, we'll leave you with this one last question to think about. When you really picture this big move, are you more worried about the logistics of moving and the fear of missing out on a house? Or are you more concerned with the financial risk and the uncertainty? Answering that question honestly is the very first step to choosing your perfect path forward.